Here we go, folks. We were warning you about this. This can't be real, but it is.
Is going to be very rich again, and it's going to happen very quickly. It's time for the United States to return to the system that made us richer and more powerful than ever before. Do you know the United States in 1870 to 1913, all tariffs, and that was the richest period in the history of the United States, relatively speaking. In other words, relatively. And they set up the Great Tariff Commission of 1887, and this commission had one function: what to do with all the money that we took in. It was so enormous that they had no idea. It was a blue ribbon committee. It was set up 1887, and what to do with all of the money that...
The Gilded Age in America, the Gilded Age. He wants to return. He says this is the Golden Age, the Gilded Age, incredibly prosperous.
We had, and again, Teddy Roosevelt was a beneficiary because when McKinley was killed, he took over this vast sum of money, and he did all of those national parks and all of the other things. And I'm not knocking him, but
the Panama Canal,
a vast amount of money, and that was all made through tariffs. We had no income tax. The income tax came in 1913.
Yeah.
As I said in my speech last week, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
Yeah. So eliminating income taxes in the United States. Eliminating income taxes in the United States and putting tariffs on other nations. Going back to a time when we didn't have income tax in the U.S. It's first of all, income taxes are unconstitutional. They were meant to pay for World War I. After World War I, they were supposed to disappear. It was a temporary thing. They weren't supposed to be here. And for whatever reason, they've just continued. It's never been codified in the U.S. Constitution. Look it up. In fact, I've interviewed a former IRS enforcement officer he now devotes his life to educating Americans that the income tax is illegal, that you shouldn't have to pay it, that there's no reason to pay it. And he worked for the IRS. He would go after tax cheats who weren't paying their income taxes. And then he realized, wait a second, this is actually fake. This is illegal. And he started researching it at the IRS headquarters, in the IRS's own library, and found that there is no law that states Americans have to pay income tax in the United States. The only carve-out is for people that live in Washington, D.C., and those who live abroad. Isn't that crazy? Those Americans who live abroad have to pay income tax. If you live in the United States, you don't. So a few months ago, this idea was floated around Christmas time that Trump was going to eliminate income tax. Let me just tell you, that would be the greatest move of any president in the last 150 years. And he would go down in history as an absolutely game-changing president. Because think about it, Americans work for the first basically up till about May of each year just to pay the federal government. They're out of their taxes. So the first 4 or 5 months or even 6 months of the year, you're paying you're paying taxes to the federal government. All of that money is gone. And what do they do with it? They spend it on wars. And do you know how wars are funded? With income tax. So if you want to stop all of these foreign wars, eliminate the federal income tax right now. You get rid of it, you stop the wars. And Trump knows that. So he's teasing around this idea, and he's been talking about it. I think if enough people get close to him to let him know that, Mr. President, if you do this, you will go down in history as the greatest president in American history. Without a doubt. And then what you do is you end the massive $1 trillion budget that funds all of these wars because you won't be able to support it. Yeah, and guess what? The Fed won't be able to print the money. So this is a big FU to the Fed. This is a big FU to the military-industrial complex. And this is a big FU to all the warmongers and neocons. So they'll try to go after him. They're not going to let him do this. Neocons try to stop him, but no federal income tax in the United States. Here we go, folks. Here we go. Buckle up.